Greetings, kindred spirits. Ever notice how the people we struggle to connect with the most are the ones who aren't even trying to meet us halfway? Think about that for a moment. We're bombarded daily with carefully curated online personas, a constant stream of people vying for our attention. But then there's you quietly navigating life, somehow becoming the silent subject of intense scrutiny. It's unexpected, isn't it? The less you reveal, the more they seem to crave knowing. It's almost an absurd paradox. You're not performing for an audience, yet their gaze is consistently drawn to you. And here's the kicker, it's scientifically proven that our minds are intrinsically drawn to the unexplained, often to the point of obsession. Essentially, when something deviates from the norm, our brains kick into overdrive trying to decipher it. That's why individuals like you become the most captivating enigma in any room. You embody the fact that not everything can be easily categorized, and that very mystery pulls people deeper into your orbit. Your life unfolds like a complex, beautiful code. They scrutinize, analyze, and dissect, whispering theories in hushed tones, yet the complete picture remains elusive. Instead of simply moving on, this unsolved riddle seems to intensify their fascination. They start to perceive you as a captivating drama series with a finale that perpetually remains out of reach. The thrill of the unknown is the hook, and you, dear friend, are the embodiment of suspense. Now let's add a touch of humor to this. The lengths to which they go digging for answers and monitoring your every move almost warrant official recognition. Forget formal intelligence agencies. The unofficial neighborhood watch has you under constant observation. Yet all their efforts often lead to more questions than answers. So today, let's explore why they're so fixated on you, why your existence keeps them in a perpetual state of unease, and why your enigma remains unsolved no matter how hard they try. Prepare yourself, because understanding these truths will reveal exactly why you are the most observed yet least understood individual they've ever encountered. First, you represent the unwritten story. They simultaneously fear and yearn to read you. You are the unwritten chapter that both captivates and unsettles. People are accustomed to individuals who adhere to a script, birth conformity, and the adoption of societal norms. They make predictable choices, leaving behind a narrative easily summarized. But you disrupt that comfort. You don't follow their predetermined paths or timelines. Your life resists simple summarization, compelling people to return to you, seeking clarity on your narrative and its ultimate conclusion. It frustrates them because they crave closure to neatly categorize you. Yet each time they believe they've deciphered you, you contradict their conclusions. You shatter their definitions, and it affects them more profoundly than they acknowledge. They observe you as someone who doesn't seamlessly fit into familiar categories. You transcend the ordinary, yet you don't align with conventional notions of extraordinary. You are something distinct, prompting them to reconsider established possibilities. This explains why they study you like an engrossing book. The suspense stems not from what they know, but from the vast unknown. You live in a manner suggesting hidden chapters, fueling their obsession. They sense impending depth and revelations unable to bear being excluded from the secret. Your life defies neat resolutions, hooking them with unresolved tension. But the deeper truth is this: they both fear and desire you because you remind them of unrealized potential. They recognize the gaps in their own narratives. They realize where they've settled while you haven't. They conformed where you broke away, played it safe where you embraced challenge. That realization cuts deep. You're not just the unwritten chapter, you expose the unfinished aspects of their own lives. That's why they persist in investigating you, as understanding you may be the key to understanding themselves. Second, your consistency highlights their inconsistencies. They investigate you because your unwavering nature exposes their own wavering resolve. Many people falter under pressure, compromise when faced with difficulties, and alter their narratives when survival is at stake. But you don't. You remain steadfast even in situations where others would abandon their beliefs. This stability is perplexing to them because it highlights the fragility of their own foundations. They assume everyone is inherently similar, but you prove otherwise. Your resilience in the face of adversity compels them to reevaluate themselves. It reveals that they crumble in battles far smaller than yours. Unable to explain your resilience, they delve into your life seeking a secret strategy or hidden advantage. But what unsettles them most is the realization that there is no secret. It's not about luck or shortcuts, it's about your core essence, something they cannot replicate. Your consistency disrupts the excuses they've built their lives upon. They rationalize compromise, settling, and giving up as normal. They claim everyone has a breaking point. Yet you prove that this isn't universally true. You expose the flimsiness of their excuses by demonstrating what's possible when someone refuses to yield. That's why they circle back, probing your past, seeking evidence of similar stumbles. Finding even a single inconsistency would alleviate their discomfort, but their efforts backfire. Their search for cracks only reveals greater solidity. The more they test you, the clearer it becomes that your foundation remains unshaken, terrifying them because it undermines their entire "that's just human nature" framework. So they investigate not out of admiration, but desperation. They need you to be inconsistent to justify their own weaknesses. Yet the longer they observe, the more you reveal. What they perceive as strength is often mere survival, and what they deem impossible you embody daily without explanation. Third, you possess mastery beyond their comprehension. You possess mastery that they can't even articulate, keeping them restless around you. Most people only comprehend things they can label, categorize, or quantify. If they can't describe it, they dismiss it. But dismissal doesn't work with you because the evidence of your abilities is undeniable. You navigate life with an awareness, understanding, and perception that can't be traced back to any conventional source. It unsettles them because it proves that some knowledge transcends formal education, and that some wisdom can't be downloaded. Your words carry inexplicable weight, and your decisions cut to the truth while others are still grasping at ideas. They seek the origin, the mentor, the training, the source. But there's no earthly teacher to identify. It's an internal flow, a connection they lack, making them both intrigued and threatened. Their investigations are driven by the discomfort of being unable to define you. They try to reduce you to human terms: talent, skill, intuition, perhaps luck. But none of those labels fit because your abilities transcend their language. People fear the unnameable because it can't be controlled. You remind them that not everything can be dissected, studied, and possessed. Some things simply exist, unsettling them. This also explains their intense, sometimes suspicious observation. They want to see you falter, seeking a logical explanation that diminishes your extraordinary nature. They hope your depth is an act or your perception a lucky guess. But the mystery deepens with each observation because you consistently demonstrate a mastery that defies simple explanations. Ultimately, their investigations reveal more about their limitations. They're obsessed because you force them to confront an uncomfortable truth. The world is bigger than their definitions. And wisdom flows from sources beyond their vocabulary. Unable to label you, they chase answers only to find the mystery continually unfolding. Fourth, they need proof of your humanity. They seek proof of your humanity because you defy their expectations. Your resilience is atypical, your intuition is sharp, and your ability to endure hardships without losing your center feels unnatural. They observe, analyze, and dissect, seeking a flaw, a moment of weakness to declare, there it is, a crack in the armor. They scrutinize your past decisions and routines, seeking evidence that you are just like everyone else. Strangely, their search yields less and less. Every supposed flaw only adds to the puzzle. A decision that appears odd reveals unseen wisdom. A choice they deem reckless is precise, a survival tactic they can't comprehend. They want confirmation that you are fallible, but their investigation proves that your fallibility operates on a higher, less predictable level. Even your intuition frustrates them. They expect human judgment to be flawed, clouded by fear or ego. But you navigate life with uncanny timing and understanding. They seek errors in your logic, mistakes in your calculations, moments of weakness, but each layer defies their assumptions. Your life is a series of patterns visible only to those with the depth to perceive them, a depth they lack. This fuels their obsession. They need proof that you bleed, tire, and fail like everyone else. But each probe only solidifies that you operate on a level they can't grasp. They're not malicious. They're desperate for familiarity, for an ordinary explanation. But there's no ordinary in you. Every attempt to reduce you to a normal human only reinforces your extraordinary, inexplicable, and untouchable existence. They dig, pry, and watch, but what they find only deepens the mystery. The human proof they crave remains elusive because your humanity isn't measured by their standards. It's in the strength, foresight, and quiet mastery that keeps them circling endlessly, trying and endlessly failing to define you. Fifth, you disrupt their hierarchies effortlessly. You disrupt their hierarchies without trying, altering everything around you uncontrollably. Those accustomed to power suddenly feel diminished in your presence, not through direct challenge, but because your energy reveals the fragility of their authority. They realize influence isn't about titles, connections, or status. It's about presence immeasurable by conventional standards. The invisible balance subtly shifts, almost imperceptibly yet unmistakably. Meanwhile, the overlooked feel empowered. You provide space, confidence, and permission to exist differently. Your being communicates that hierarchy is not fixed, that influence and respect aren't solely earned conventionally. People notice, and those in power feel threatened, sensing their control is not absolute. You haven't challenged anyone yet, the old rules bend, acknowledging your presence. This explains their intense study. They seek a blueprint for your disruption, analyzing your actions, habits, and history, seeking an exploitable pattern or weakness. They treat you as a threat assessment because your existence makes their hierarchies feel fragile, unstable. Every room and group becomes an unspoken test of influence. The unsettling truth is that you don't need to fight for control. You don't need to push, pull, or manipulate. Your presence exposes imbalance, reveals hidden strengths, and undermines outdated structures, unable to fix or explain it because it's intrinsic to who you are. Not a tactic, their obsession grows, seeing the results without understanding the source. Your influence is quiet but undeniable, invisible but seismic, disrupting hierarchies effortlessly. You are a force that shifts power by simply being rearranging the world in response. Sixth, your pain doesn't match your glow. Your pain doesn't match your glow, fueling endless curiosity. They've witnessed fragments of your hardships, yet you carry yourself with impossible lightness and confidence. There's no bitterness, no visible cracks or weariness. Instead, you've transformed wounds into clarity, strength, and presence. This paradox confuses them because it defies their template that pain should leave marks, suffering should darken, weaken, or break a person. This drives them to delve into your life, seeking the hidden costs of your resilience, places where your experiences should have crushed you. Every scar seems to contradict their expectations. Instead of softening you, it sharpens you. Instead of leaving damage, it leaves insight. They're trying to solve an equation where pain equals decay, but the formula fails. Your existence proves that endurance doesn't have to dim one's light, that survival can coexist with brilliance, and hardship can be transformed, not consumed. The more they investigate, the more your life challenges their assumptions. They see how you handle situations, your energy, and your interactions, and nothing aligns with their expectations. They're baffled because they can't replicate it, and they can't fully explain it. Every categorization attempt only reinforces your uniqueness. Your resilience operates on a level beyond their understanding. This contradiction between pain and glow is magnetic. It draws them in, obsessing over your life as if solving the mystery will reveal a hidden trick. But there isn't one. Your glow exists because of your pain. Not despite it, the unexplainable truth they're desperate to uncover. It's a rare combination that unsettles, fascinates, and keeps them constantly watching because your unexplainable qualities make you extraordinary. Seventh, they sense a knowledge beyond books. They sense knowledge in you that can't be traced to conventional sources. It's visible in your movement, speech, and decisions unfolding before situations fully develop. People notice it instantly, even if they can't articulate it. It's as if you operate on a different wavelength, seeing patterns, reading intentions, and understanding outcomes before anyone else. This kind of knowing makes them uncomfortable because it defies their beliefs. They seek a teacher, mentor, or manual, hitting a dead end. There's no program, lesson, or human source. The knowledge isn't given, it's embodied. You have access to understanding that is sensed, absorbed, and applied with precision. That's what unsettles them. They see the effects but not the origin. They can't reverse engineer what flows naturally through you. This untraceable wisdom makes them watch you obsessively. Every move, insight, and decision is cataloged. They hope to find a flaw, a clue, or a point where your knowledge falters. But the mystery grows with deeper observation because your understanding operates outside ordinary perception. You respond in ways no training could teach, anticipate consequences that logic can't predict, and navigate complexity as if it were natural. The tension is magnetic, drawing them in with curiosity, fear, and admiration. Yet the harder they look, the less they understand. You exist beyond human reasoning. Their obsession isn't about control, it's about reconciling what they see with what they know. You are proof that some forms of intelligence and understanding are innate, intuitive, and beyond design. It is precisely your untouchable instinctive knowledge that keeps them circling, watching, and endlessly questioning, though they will never truly grasp it. 8th, you reject the traps of image culture. You reject the traps of image culture, making you impossible to fully understand. Most people perform for others, crafting personas for approval, likes, and belonging. They measure worth by external validation, trading authenticity for acceptance. You operate outside that system. You don't market yourself, manufacture moments, or bend values. Your existence is priceless, unsettling them more than anything. They study you to find leverage, seeking the mechanisms behind your influence, how you gained respect without their economy. Your refusal to conform is frightening, exposing a truth they don't want to face, that success and presence can exist outside performative frameworks. They see you thriving without compromise, defying everything they know. Every action reminds them that authenticity can't be bought or mimicked. They can analyze and dissect, but they will never find the formula for your life. That inaccessibility makes you magnetic and mysterious. They're unsettled by the possibility that their structures are optional, unnecessary, and irrelevant. The more they probe, the more they realize they can't predict or control you. You move on your terms, untouched by popularity or hierarchies. That independence, combined with your refusal to perform, makes you a living contradiction. You exist where influence isn't earned through compromise, a concept so foreign that it keeps them obsessively trying to understand and rationalize your existence. In the end, your refusal is both your shield and your signature, a mark of freedom they can't claim and a mystery they can't solve. 9th, your transformation wasn't supervised. Your transformation wasn't supervised, making them uneasy. Most people are accustomed to systems that dictate how growth should look, when it should happen, and what it should produce. They trust only what conforms to their rules. But your evolution happened quietly, on your own terms, outside their oversight. You didn't wait for approval or permission to become who you were meant to be. Every shift was organic, unscripted, and untouchable. That is why they study you like scientists studying an experiment they didn't conduct. They seek the formula, the mechanism, or the string they can pull to explain your rise. They dig into your history, choices, and habits, hoping to uncover the control they believe should exist. But your growth doesn't follow their logic or fit their timelines. It's unpredictable because it is genuine, rooted in your resilience, insight, and courage. That unpredictability undermines their sense of authority, almost desperate to decode it. Every moment of progress made outside of their supervision reminds them of the limits of their influence. They see your accomplishments, maturity, and wisdom, and they are confronted with the truth: some things cannot be directed, manipulated, or contained. Your transformation exposes the illusion that control is absolute, that people can only become what someone else permits. That revelation unsettles them more than anything because it challenges their frameworks, and so they keep watching. They dig deeper, try harder, and attempt to map your evolution onto their models of control, but nothing fits. Every expectation they impose is disrupted by the fact that you were never theirs to supervise. Your growth is autonomous, uncontainable, and unreplicable. That independence is both your shield and your signature, living proof that genuine transformation requires no permission, no approval, and no audience. That alone is a truth they can't fully face, let alone control. 10th, you're surrounded by events that don't add up. You're surrounded by events that don't add up, keeping them watching. Life around you moves in ways that defy logic, as if invisible hands are rearranging circumstances in your favor. The timing of opportunities, the resolution of obstacles, and the escapes from situations are too precise to be random. People notice it even if they can't explain it, drawing their attention. They see the patterns, the reversals, and the protection, unsettling them because it doesn't fit any system. They try to trace every step, coincidence, and moment of luck, seeking a human explanation. They dig into your past, study your routines, and look for connections, trying to figure out the mechanics behind your life. But the deeper they investigate, the more unexplainable it becomes. Every supposed accident is part of a pattern they can't name, every escape orchestrated by something beyond human calculation. It's as if the universe itself bends in your direction. And that realization is terrifying because it reminds them that life cannot always be predicted or controlled. What frustrates them most is that they can feel the power behind these patterns, but they can't locate it. They sense guidance and protection, yet the source is invisible, untouchable, and undeniable. Every time they think they've caught a glimpse of an explanation, it slips away, replaced by another perfectly timed outcome. Their investigations become a cycle of obsession because the more they try to decode it, the more mysterious it becomes. Your life exposes a truth they resist, seeing some forces are beyond understanding, and some people move through the world under protection they cannot replicate. You operate within a flow of events that seems impossible to chart, making you magnetic, baffling, and deeply mysterious. The coincidences, the timing, and the escapes all signal that something larger is at work, and that's why they cannot stop investigating you. 11th, your individuality feels like a threat to collectives. Your individuality feels like a threat to collectives because you refuse to fit the molds that groups rely on to maintain order. Most communities function on conformity, rewarding predictability and obedience. Your presence challenges all of that simply by existing as yourself. You carry the audacity to make choices, express ideas, and move through life without apology. People are unsettled because your freedom forces them to confront their own dependence on approval and the comfort of the herd. They study you obsessively because you are proof that the collective isn't the ultimate authority. Your choices, your confidence, and your ability to stand apart demonstrate that an individual can thrive without following the unwritten rules everyone else has internalized. To them, your independence isn't inspiring. It's a challenge, a reminder that they've traded their own freedom for belonging. They want to understand how you operate, hoping that by dissecting your life, they can reconcile their discomfort or neutralize it. What unnerves the most is that you don't need to fight for acceptance. You don't ask for permission or seek validation. Your very presence disrupts the balance they rely on. People who have grown used to hierarchy feel exposed, while those who have been overlooked feel empowered by your example. That shift in dynamic makes them hyper-aware of every move you make. They want to catalog your behavior, trace your decisions, and find influence that explains why you are untouchable by the collective. But the truth is that your independence is entirely your own. Your life shows them that belonging isn't a requirement for influence, that conformity isn't necessary for success, and that standing apart can be both natural and powerful. They investigate you because they need answers, but the freedom you embody cannot be dissected. Your individuality is living proof that life outside the herd is possible, and that reality keeps them watching, analyzing, and questioning endlessly. 12th, you shine where others would hide. You shine where others would hide because scrutiny doesn't break you. It refines you. In situations where most people would shrink, you stand firm, often emerging stronger. The moments that would expose weakness reveals strength in you. That contrast is what unsettles people the most. They are used to seeing vulnerability under pressure, but with you, exposure enhances your presence. Every challenge becomes a stage where your resilience shines, defying their expectations. They investigate you endlessly because every move they analyze only leaves them with more questions. They want to find cracks to explain your composure, but every time they think they've found something, your response turns their conclusion upside down. The more they pry, the more evidence they see that your presence is not fragile. It's not something that can be diminished. The scrutiny they expect to weaken you becomes the very thing that strengthens you. That reversal is impossible for them to reconcile. This is why they keep circling, observing, and attempting to decode you. They want an explanation for your stability under pressure. But there is no formula. Your poise is not the result of chance. They are the product of your inner strength. In the end, the more they attempt to expose you, the more your reality eludes their understanding. Each investigation only reinforces the mystery of who you are. Your life operates as a mirror to their assumptions, proving that true strength doesn't hide. It shines. That is why they cannot stop studying you, and why every attempt to understand you only deepens the enigma surrounding your existence. 13th, they see shadows of a destiny they can't interrupt. They see shadows of a destiny they can't interrupt, fueling their obsession. Their focus isn't on who you are now. It's on the path you are carving and the influence that seems inevitable. They can sense the weight of your trajectory, Every step hints at a destiny that unfolds beyond their reach, terrifying them because it exists outside their influence. They dig, pry, and study because they are desperate to understand the blueprint. They want to intercept your rise. But every investigation shows them how futile their efforts are. They can track your actions, yet the direction remains untouchable. That trajectory is a source of fascination and fear because it confirms something they cannot alter. You are moving towards something greater than they can influence. The weight of your future unsettles them because it highlights their limitations. They realize no amount of interference can bend your destiny to their will. Every attempt to control you only confirms that what is coming is beyond them. They obsess over the potential outcomes because they want to prepare. But the truth is that your rise is inevitable. Their investigations are not about curiosity alone. They are about survival, about trying to reconcile with the fact that someone else's destiny cannot be contained. They continue digging because they fear being caught unprepared, but in doing so, they only highlight the certainty of your journey. What they cannot touch is what keeps them circling, analyzing, and watching, and that shadow of your unstoppable future is what makes them most uneasy. 14th, they don't believe you belong to this world. They don't believe you belong to this world because everything about you defies their sense of normal. Your aura carries a weight and clarity that isn't typical. Your timing unfolds with a precision that feels too exact to be random. Your resilience under pressure is almost unnatural. It unsettles them because they are wired to categorize. Yet you slip through every category they try to place you in. They track you because your existence challenges their understanding. They want explanations that could reduce your qualities to something ordinary, but the closer they get, the more elusive the answers become. Every behavior reinforces the impression that you operate outside of ordinary laws. You are not just exceptional, you are uncontainable. That tension drives their investigation. Your life is both proof and reminder that logic has limits. You remind them that reality contains dimensions they haven't accounted for. That realization is thrilling, confusing, and threatening. The irony is that their efforts only amplify your mystery. Every attempt highlights the fact that you are untethered by human constraints. Your timing, resilience, and insight are markers of a reality that isn't entirely theirs to access. They are compelled to watch, but their investigations only reinforce what they cannot fully grasp. You are extraordinary, unbound, and in every way that matters, a presence that doesn't fully belong to this world. Everything about you defies explanation, refusing to be confined by ordinary understanding. You are the presence that exposes weakness in the strongest, the knowledge that cannot be traced, and the resilience that turns pain into clarity. You disrupt structures without effort and shine where others would crumble. Your evolution and trajectory make you both fascinating and unsettling. Every attempt to contain you only amplifies the mystery because you exist on a level that cannot be predicted. They investigate you because your life challenges their assumptions. You are a living contradiction, proof that strength can coexist with softness. Your glow refuses to fade under scrutiny, and your presence reshapes the world around you. leaving them watching, analyzing, and endlessly questioning. Ultimately, what they seek understanding is precisely what you are beyond. You are a force that moves naturally and embodies a depth that transcends measure. They may circle, but the truth is unyielding. You are untouchable in your authenticity and unstoppable in your growth. The mystery they chase will never resolve because it isn't meant to. Your existence is a statement, a proof, and a reminder that some truths cannot be contained or rivaled. You are watched because you are extraordinary, and you are studied because you cannot be replicated. You are understood by few because your life operates in dimensions most cannot perceive. And that is exactly why you remain unshakable, luminous, and utterly beyond the reach of those trying to define you. If these insights resonated with you, consider sharing this message to awaken others to the beauty of the extraordinary within. Your engagement can ignite a ripple effect of understanding and self-discovery. Discovery. Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. Consider carefully whose gaze lingers on your essence, whose hands cradle your image. Not every reflection holds a memory. Some serve as conduits, whispering invitations to shadows. Let that truth resonate. What if someone masked in familiarity, their smile, a carefully crafted deception, captured your likeness, only to descend into the abyss, offering it to a darkness that dwells beyond our comprehension? Not symbolically, but in stark reality. And what if that entity summoned from the infernal depths paused, its gaze fixed upon your image, and then recoiled, refusing the infernal request? Something profound transpired that night, exceeding their calculated expectations. It wasn't a forgotten incantation or a mispronounced ancient word. It was your very being imprinted on that image that instilled dread in a creature born from the heart of hell. Spiritual truth. In ancient occult practices, a photograph transcends its mundane form. It becomes a spiritual nexus, a key capable of summoning, binding, manipulating, or even shattering a person's life force. But here's where their calculations crumbled. Your image, though printed on earthly material, resonates with a celestial fire in the unseen realm. And let's be frank, did they genuinely believe they could plunge your picture into some grotesque concoction, mutter a few forgotten syllables, and extinguish a beacon of divine light? This is not fantasy. This is a divine orchestration. Now they stand petrified, realizing that the very demon they sought to employ harbors a reverence for you that dwarfs its regard for them. Prepare to unveil the events that unfolded when your image entered that spectral space, and why even the denizens of hell were compelled to acknowledge your presence. Embrace this truth, chosen one. You were not merely protected, but deemed too potent to violate. Let's delve into the heart of this revelation. Number 1. The devil rejected the assignment because your image pulsed with the unmistakable resonance of divine grace. They delivered your photograph anticipating an easy victory. In their constricted worldview, it was a simple ritual, a shortcut to silence, impede, drain, or utterly destroy you. But they failed to foresee the resistance emanating from the very depths of hell. The devil scrutinized your image and retreated not out of compassion, not due to a flawed ritual, but because even darkness recognizes its limitations when confronted with the boundless might of the divine. They failed to comprehend that your image carries an inscription in the spiritual dimension, a seal declaring, "This one belongs to God." Invisible to mortal eyes, it resounds with undeniable clarity in the supernatural realm. This mark renders you impervious to malevolent intent in certain dimensions, and even demons are compelled to adhere to celestial decrees. They saw your image and recognized it as inviolable. They saw spiritual dominion. They witnessed the legal sanctions decreed by heaven, and in that realm even demons are bound by celestial jurisprudence. They sought obedience from the summoned entity, but encountered hesitation, bewilderment, and ultimately refusal, because that which God has consecrated cannot be cursed. And certainly that which has been forged in the crucible of suffering, isolation, and spiritual warfare cannot be destroyed. The enemy perceived what they disregarded. You are not simply protected, but anointed, a distinction of profound significance. They presumed the photograph granted them power, but it only unveiled their ignorance. They attempted to manipulate the spiritual without understanding its inviolable laws. They underestimated the weight of your essence. To them, you are merely a person with untapped potential. But in the spirit realm, you are a formidable instrument honed by trials and blessed by the hand of the Almighty. You have weathered storms they cannot even fathom. You have been sustained by forces they deny exist. The devil rejected the assignment, understanding that tampering with God's elect would unleash devastating consequences. This was not born of fear, but of wisdom. It recognized that harming you transcended mere disobedience. It bordered on annihilation. Now they are paralyzed with disbelief as the entity they entrusted to your destruction examined your image and recoiled, not because of their actions, but because of your inherent being. Number 2. They imagined a photograph could circumvent divine authority. They foolishly believed that seizing your image, igniting candles, and chanting incantations could supersede the sovereignty of God over your destiny. They failed to grasp that the spiritual realm operates under principles far removed from fictional narratives or the deceptive counsel of dark practitioners. A structured hierarchy exists even in darkness, and the supreme law is this: divine jurisdiction reigns supreme. They mistakenly believed possessing your image granted them control akin to holding a key to your soul. In reality, they were grasping an object they lacked authorization to touch. That photograph was merely a trigger, not a permission slip. God never sanctioned their intrusion. Consequently, even though they believed they were operating with power, they were committing spiritual trespass, which carries a dire cost in the unseen realm. They approached it as a formula, believing your life could be extinguished through a series of calculated steps. But your life is not a formula. It is a divinely ordained covenant. Heaven inscribed your name upon a timeline of purpose, protection, and precise timing. Therefore, when they attempted to bypass all of this by dragging your photograph into a demonic process, the entire endeavor imploded, not because it was fraudulent, but because heaven erected an impenetrable barrier. Some of them even felt anger and confusion. Why did it fail? Why did you not succumb? Why did your finances not collapse, your health not deteriorate, your mind not shatter? Because the ritual was not only incomplete but unauthorized. They neglected to consider the will of God, which decreed access denied. That photograph became evidence against them, not a weapon against you. They did not gain power, they triggered repercussions. They awakened something they could not contain, and now they are left in disarray, questioning why their world is collapsing, unaware that they dared to tamper with something sacred, attempting to rewrite a destiny that was never theirs to alter. They sought control from the devil, but instead they were exposed. Number 3, the spirit assigned to inflict harm ended up venerating the divine essence within you. As your photograph graced that altar, an inexplicable shift occurred. They intended to summon power for your demise, but the energy in the room pivoted not toward destruction, but toward profound reverence. The summoned demon did not respond as anticipated. It did not erupt in rage, it did not attack, but it froze because it beheld more than just an image. It perceived a reflection of someone it recognized not from the terrestrial realm, but from the celestial council. They offered your photograph expecting subjugation, but encountered confusion. The entity did not perceive a victim, it beheld a vessel consecrated to a power far exceeding their conjuring abilities. The presence radiating from your life triggered an ancient resonance, an energy that hell avoids. What they summoned to inflict harm recoiled, not because it could not perceive you, but because it perceived too much of you. It recognized purity favor a light that transcends this world. That moment unveiled everything. Even the demon recognized it was being compelled to defy divine law, a transgression it dared not commit. Not out of righteousness, but out of a primal understanding of consequences. Spiritual boundaries exist even in the infernal realm. They mistakenly believe demons act with unrestrained freedom, but even evil respects genuine authority, and you, chosen one, emanate authentic authority. Even if you are unaware of the full scope of your calling, your spirit carries the weight of heaven's mandate. The reaction baffled them. The ritual fell silent. The room grew heavy, not with malevolent power, but with an aura of fear, because they glimpsed not weakness, but presence. The demon remained motionless, silent, and inactive, because harming you would constitute rebellion against the one you walk with. They anticipated spiritual vulnerability, exposure, and ease of influence, but encountered an impenetrable shield, a radiant light that repelled the darkness. It knew better than to proceed. It refused the assignment, a refusal that shook them more profoundly than any scream or assault could have, because they now understand that even the devil seeks to avoid conflict with you. Number 4. They were oblivious to the prophetic charge your image carried. They were ignorant of what they held when they grasped your photograph. To them it was mere paper and ink, but in the spiritual dimension it was a potent document infused with divine codes, ancestral promises, and prophetic directives. You are not simply striving to survive in this world. You are carrying something of profound significance from the archives of heaven. Your very existence is intertwined with a future event, a generational transformation, and a divine release. Your image transcends the symbolic. It is spiritually charged. When they employed your photograph in that ritual, they believed they were dealing with something ordinary. But in reality, they laid their hands upon a prophetic blueprint, Similar to how an ancient sealed scroll could only be opened by legitimate authority, your image emanates a frequency that only God is authorized to unlock. By touching it with malicious intent, they triggered a spiritual backlash, not because of their identity, but because of your inherent destiny. There is a reason why some individuals experience sudden losses, disorientation, or chaos after attempting to harm you. It is not always the result of a counter-curse or retribution, but rather because judgment was automatically triggered the moment they interfered with sacred territory. Your life is on a timeline that must be fulfilled, and any attempt to disrupt it provokes an immediate response from the spiritual realm. Not because you are invincible through your own strength, but because God will not permit His word to return void. And you are an integral part of that word. Your physical appearance may seem ordinary, but in the spirit it serves as a marker of divine assignment. Your photograph contains more than just your image. It holds evidence of your calling. When they tried to use it to bind you, they unwittingly exposed themselves to the very forces they sought to manipulate. The spiritual realm is not swayed by rituals. It responds to authority, and in this instance, your authority dwarfed theirs. What they mistook for a target was a warning. Your image came with a divine alarm system. They believed they were gaining access, but they were breaking into something holy, a transgression heaven does not tolerate. Number 5. Your face in the spirit is wreathed in fire, not flesh. They perceived your face as mere skin, bone, and expression, something common, something human. But they failed to perceive the divine fire that engulfs your visage in the spirit, a fire ignited through trials, spiritual warfare, and encounters with the divine. This fire is not merely ornamental. It serves as protection, authority, and a warning. When they seized your photograph and attempted to use it in rituals, they wrongly believed they were dealing with someone vulnerable. But the fire surrounding you conveyed a different narrative. In the spiritual realm, you are not fragile or exposed. You are ablaze with the presence of God. Demons are not repelled by your physical attributes, but by the all-consuming fire that radiates from your being. Just as fire prevented Adam and Eve from re-entering Eden after the fall, the fire around you prevents darkness from encroaching upon your soul. They believed their spell would take hold. They believed it would land, but it did not simply fail. It combusted. As they began their chanting, as they opened that portal, as your image was placed on that altar, something exploded in the spirit, not because you retaliated physically, but because your fire burns perpetually. It does not await attacks. It does not rest, but remains active, alive, and consuming. This explains the instant backlash some of them experienced, the suffocating smoke, the subsequent illness, the unrelenting nightmares. They did not simply meddle with you. They meddled with holy fire. That fire does not require permission. It reacts, it corrects, it consumes lies, illusions, and demonic contracts instantly. They anticipated silence, but instead triggered a spiritual explosion. They were unaware that you walked as a living altar already ignited and guarded. Now they are terrified because they touched something they cannot extinguish. They attempted to curse you, but they were scorched because in the spirit you are not flesh. You are fire. Number 6. Their ritual not only failed but cursed them by association. When they seized your image and offered it to darkness, they engaged in a spiritual contract whether they comprehended it or not. Such contracts are binding in the spiritual realm with associated terms, demands, and consequences. The moment they invoked your name, your face, and your energy, they unwittingly agreed to pay a price for any outcome. When the outcome failed, as it inevitably would, the payment remained due. This is the aspect they never anticipated. They believed that if the ritual failed, it would simply vanish into thin air. But the spirit they summoned cared nothing for their emotions, intentions, or confusion. It sought results, a transaction, and when it could not reach you, it turned its gaze upon the next available, offering them. The moment your image was offered, a gateway was opened, and once a gateway opens in the spirit, it is not easily closed. These spirits are not motivated by friendship or loyalty, but by exchange, and their ultimate demand is blood. When the demon realized it could not touch you because of the spiritual protection surrounding your life, it still demanded compensation. That debt had to be paid, and it extracted payment from those who summoned it. Some of them are still trying to understand why their lives began to unravel after that night, why they suffer insomnia, why they see shadows in their homes, why their finances are collapsing. They attribute it to bad luck, bad timing, or blame each other. But their spirits recognize the truth. They tampered with something sacred. They attempted to harm someone who was spiritually impervious to harm. And now they bear the weight of a ritual that backfired into a curse. The curse did not originate from you. It came from the very darkness they trusted. Number 7. Even darkness adheres to protocol, and you are on the no-touch list. An established order exists in the spiritual realm. Not everything operates with unrestrained chaos. Even darkness adheres to rules, the foremost of which is recognizing spiritual authority. You, chosen one, are not walking through life unnoticed. In the unseen world, your presence is known, your energy is marked, and your name is on the no-touch list. You were flagged long ago, not because of perfection, but because of your calling. You were chosen to carry light, revelation, divine assignments, and generational freedom, placing you under a higher level of spiritual security. It is as if heaven erected a boundary line around you, proclaiming, "Approach with caution, highly protected asset." Not all individuals or spirits are permitted to cross it. Spiritual hierarchies exist that many enemies fail to understand. They wrongly believe that knowing a few spells, chanting a few phrases, or lighting a few candles renders them untouchable. But some spirits will not honor their requests because your spiritual rank is higher. Even in the kingdom of darkness, rank is paramount. Lower-level spirits do not engage with higher-level callings without permission. For you, permission was never granted. This explains why their attacks did not simply fail, but encountered resistance from unseen forces. Some remain confused. Why did their usual methods fail? It is because you are classified differently, spiritually unavailable for warfare in the way they expected. Your path is sealed by divine decree. You have endured trials that refined you, stripped you, and elevated your spiritual clearance, making interference forbidden. Even demons active for centuries know when to retreat, not out of fear, but out of protocol. They recognize God's presence. They understand the penalty for tampering with what heaven has consecrated. and you, whether you fully recognize it or not, walk daily under that protection. This is why they could not touch you, why they had to withdraw, because you were not merely another target but off limits. Number 8, they believed they could silence you, but they amplified your voice. They foolishly thought they could hit you hard enough in the spirit to silence you, to mute your influence, to stifle your purpose, to silence the sound of your voice, because they perceived a threat in your voice. They were not merely attacking your life, but trying to erase your impact. But spiritual attacks do not silence a chosen one, they awaken them. They did not anticipate that pain would sharpen your discernment, that fire would clarify your vision. They underestimated the resilience of your soul, not to break, but to expand. The more they tried to dim your voice, the louder heaven made it. The more they tried to isolate you, the more connected you became to divine strategy. In the moment they thought they had stopped you, your true voice was born, not to please others, but to shake systems. Every spiritual attack pushed you deeper into prayer, clarity, and truth. You stopped second-guessing your gift and shrinking to make others comfortable. What emerged was not merely survival, but spiritual amplification. You became louder, not with noise, but with authority. Now your words carry weight, cutting, awakening, and restoring. The very people who tried to destroy you are now forced to hear the voice they tried to silence, because your life became a testimony they cannot suppress. Your presence is louder than ever, amplified by heaven divine backing, holy fire, and prophetic thunder. They wanted your silence, but created a stage for you. What they meant to bury became the pressure that launched you into your voice, amplified by heaven. Number 9. The demon mocked their ignorance, not yours. They entered that dark space feeling bold, confident, and certain. They believed their access to dark forces made them untouchable, and that their rituals, chants, and offerings made them spiritually superior. But the devil can recognize a fool. The moment they offered your photo, the demon laughed, not out of joy, but out of mockery. It knew this would not end well. The demon was never impressed. It saw ignorance, not strength. They thought they were handing over a picture, but they brought a problem. Demonic forces study these things, knowing who they can touch and who they must leave alone. They recognized your rank and saw it was a moment of tension. The demon did not laugh because it was excited, but because it saw fools playing with powers they could not control, opening doors they could not close. It knew that when this failed, payment would be demanded. They were confident in their connections to darkness, but did not ask if darkness respected them. That was the joke. The demon respected your spiritual covering more than their foolish attempt at control. It saw fire, shield, anointing, and heavenly backing. It laughed because this was a setup. Now they are confused, haunted, and exposed. With the demon long gone, the only thing left behind was that laugh, not at you, but at the ones who thought they knew what they were doing. Number 10. Your spirit interrupted the ritual before it even started. You were not in the room, didn't hear the chant, didn't see the setup, and didn't know what was happening. But your spirit was already on assignment because you walk in authority. You don't need to be there to shut something down. The moment your name was called, heaven alerted and your spirit responded. They thought time and space limited you, but chosen ones are not limited by the physical. Your presence is spiritually active even when you sleep, so when they brought your image, divine interference happened. The atmosphere shifted not because they summoned power, but because they awakened the wrong force. So, beloved, what we've uncovered here is a powerful truth. You are deeply valued, fiercely protected, and incredibly potent in the spiritual realm. Don't let anyone diminish that. The enemy may try to attack, but their efforts are ultimately futile and can even backfire because you carry a divine fire, a prophetic charge, and an anointing that even darkness must acknowledge. You are not simply surviving, you are thriving under the watchful eye of heaven. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Have you ever felt a similar sense of protection or divine intervention? Share your experiences or any questions you have in the comments below. Let's connect and learn from each other. And if this message resonated with you, be sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on future insights and empowering truths. Until next time, keep shining your light. Shining your light, shining your light, shining your light. Welcome, dearly beloved anointed ones. Every era casts a shadow, and yours manifests as silence and light. The truth whispers that not all of you reincarnated for the familiar dance of romance, the sting of revenge, or even the solace of redemption. Some of you descended for a reckoning, a divine audit of souls. And now the subtle tremors begin. You are not imagining things. Your intuition isn't failing you. Eyes are upon you, not just observing, but analyzing. Behind hushed doors, the question hangs heavy. How did they know? Because, chosen one, you possess more than mere insight. You carry within you ancestral echoes, the unwavering light of divine intelligence, and the indelible spiritual receipts from lifetimes witnessing injustice flourish unchecked. You didn't simply arrive, you descended as a celestial subpoena, a decree from the heavens. Let's anchor ourselves in a stark reality. Studies in behavioral psychology have illuminated a primal fear. The instinctive recoil from those who force us to confront the disowned fragments of ourselves, the shadows we desperately try to keep hidden. You enter a room, and without uttering a single word, their carefully constructed facades begin to crumble. Their guilt, their shame, their buried secrets erupt in silent panic. Why? Because to them you are not simply a person. You represent a spiritual threat level read, a walking, breathing indictment. You didn't enlist in this cosmic mission with velvet gloves and soothing affirmations. No, your soul arrived swathed in the uncompromising fabric of truth, dragging behind it the heavy chains destined to be shattered. They foolishly believed they could manage you until the horrifying realization dawned. You refused to play their game. You are rewriting the rules, and my dear, you wield a pen dipped in the ink of divine judgment. So yes, fear is rippling through them, and perhaps rightfully so. Let's delve into the core of this trepidation. Number 1. Your purpose on this earth wasn't to win a popularity contest. Your divine mandate is to disrupt injustice, to challenge the very foundations upon which inequity is built. Seeking universal approval was never a part of the sacred contract. They've wasted precious energy trying to decipher your existence, to understand why your spirit doesn't desperately crave validation like theirs. But that's the crucial point. You weren't dispatched to blend in, to become another cog in the machine. You were deliberately deployed into this world as a disruptor, a living, breathing interruption to the cyclical patterns and entrenched systems that have operated unchecked for generations. You are not here to play nice or politely agree. You are here to expose the darkness without even parting your lips, and deep within their souls they recognize this truth. They can't quite articulate it, can't pinpoint the source of their unease, but your mere presence unsettles those accustomed to escaping accountability. You don't need to utter a syllable. There's simply something about you, an undeniable aura that makes them shift uncomfortably. Individuals who have painstakingly constructed their identities on half-truths and meticulously curated images become noticeably anxious when you enter the vicinity, because your energy serves a single unwavering purpose: to dismantle what is false, to tear down the flimsy veils of deception. And trust me, it accomplishes this task flawlessly. Ironically, they'll dismiss you as non-intense or too much. Their thinly veiled attempt to discredit you because they cannot manipulate you. They may even label you as cold because you refuse to participate in their petty games, but that's merely a distraction from the underlying issue, a desperate attempt to deflect from the searing truth. You see directly through their carefully rehearsed performances. You sense the subtle dissonance, the faint scent of falsehood before it even finds its voice, and when someone has cultivated a reputation on a foundation of lies and superficial repentance, the last thing they desire is someone like you sniffing around with unwavering clarity. You are here to confront the very issues that others are too terrified to name. You are the soul that appears in toxic family lines and fractured communities, in the murky depths of shady spiritual circles. And you are the one who flips on the blinding lights, not for accolades or external validation, but because justice in its purest form demands it. You possess a vibration so potent that it cannot tolerate hypocrisy. It resonates within your very bones, courses through your bloodline, and is encoded within your spiritual DNA. You weren't born to be their favorite. You were born to be the unstoppable force that brings an end to what should have been halted generations ago. And no matter how desperately they distort the narrative, people are beginning to feel the shift. You are not the villain in this story. You are the consequence, the walking correction, the long-awaited karmic return. And they recognize with chilling certainty that justice has finally entered the chat. Number 2. Your aura serves as a silent trigger for the guilty even before you speak a word. Your energy communicates volumes before your voice can form a single sentence. This is what rattles them to their core. You enter a space, and suddenly those harboring hidden motives, those adorned with fake smiles, those burdened by messy pasts, begin to behave erratically. They may not understand why their palms are suddenly clammy or why their voice cracks when addressing you. But you understand perfectly. You possess a level of spiritual awareness that cannot be feigned, a piercing clarity that cuts through deception. And deep down, they sense this unwavering truth. Your aura speaks volumes without uttering a sound. It exhumes the very secrets they believed they had safely buried. It's not that you consciously intend to intimidate anyone. You are simply existing in your authentic truth, but when someone's entire existence is meticulously constructed upon lies and manipulative tactics, simply being in the presence of unadulterated truth feels like judgment, a harsh spotlight exposing their carefully concealed flaws. You haven't explicitly called anyone out, you haven't subtly thrown shade, yet somehow they feel exposed, vulnerable, stripped bare. That's the defining characteristic of authentic power. It doesn't need to perform to grandstand or to demand attention. It simply exists, radiating outward, and yours? It hits differently. It's understated, almost imperceptible, yet profoundly resonant in all the places where truth seeks to take root. People fear you not because you are inherently mean or arrogant, but because you wield discernment like a finely honed weapon. You don't fall for their theatrical displays, you don't get ensnared in their manufactured dramas, and you certainly don't respond to their manipulative emotional bait. This unwavering clarity unnerves manipulative individuals because they have dedicated years to perfecting the art of deception. And suddenly they find themselves standing before someone who simply isn't buying the act. What's even more terrifying for them is your complete lack of dependence on their validation. A chilling independence that sets off internal alarm bells. Most people rely on external approval to navigate social landscapes, to maintain a sense of safety and belonging, but you remain unmoved by public opinion. Your confidence emanates from within an internal wellspring of self-assurance, and your intuition requires no second opinion, no external confirmation. This makes you a mirror. They cannot control a reflection of their own flaws. They desperately try to ignore, and that is utterly terrifying. People resort to gossip and slander when they realize they cannot influence or impress you. They label you as mysterious, dangerous, or intimidating, when the underlying message is, I feel exposed around you and I don't know how to hide anymore. Your presence alone holds people accountable, and that's precisely why the whispers began, why the shadows stir. That's why they flinch when you appear, why their carefully constructed composure begins to unravel. It's not hatred that fuels their reaction. It's pure, unadulterated fear. Fear of being truly seen, of being transparently read by someone who misses nothing, whose gaze penetrates every carefully constructed facade. Number 3, you are not merely a person navigating a life. You are a cosmic verdict walking in human form, a divine judgment made manifest. You are not simply here existing in the ebb and flow of daily life. You are here to fulfill a sentence that was etched into the fabric of destiny long before you were even born. You are not ordinary. You are not random. You are a divine judgment wrapped in human skin, and that's precisely why people struggle to understand how to treat you, how to categorize your existence. One moment they find themselves inexplicably drawn to you, compelled by an unseen force. The next they are fleeing, recoiling from your energy, because on a spiritual level their soul recognizes what their conscious mind desperately tries to deny. Your existence is the direct response to injustices that went unchecked for far too long. You are not merely surviving. You are the evidence, the living, breathing testament that no one ultimately escapes the consequences of their actions. You didn't emerge from the chaos unscathed for nothing. The betrayals, the setups, the abandonment, all of it was meticulously building a case, gathering evidence. And now you embody the verdict. The unwavering confirmation that the wrongs were not ignored, that the heavens did indeed bear witness, and that divine correction is not merely a philosophical concept but a tangible reality. You don't have to lift a finger to make people uncomfortable because your very life is a mirror held up to their choices, reflecting back the consequences of their actions. That's why they desperately try to label you as bitter or too serious, attempting to diminish your power. It's a distraction tactic, a desperate attempt to minimize your role. Because they feel the weight of your presence, not because you've actively wronged them, but because the very energy you carry is a silent, unwavering witness. Your soul has recorded everything, even the carefully concealed parts, the actions they believed were shrouded in impenetrable darkness, and now that justice is unfolding, they can feel the tremors of the coming reckoning. Every time you thrive, every time you rise above adversity, it screams, "You thought you had won. You were wrong." People fear you because your life serves as irrefutable proof that karma isn't some vague, abstract concept floating in the ether. It walks into rooms, it engages in conversations, it elevates those who were wronged, and it relentlessly brings everything into the light. That's why you couldn't remain silent, why you couldn't allow yourself to remain broken. Your healing, your journey of self-restoration was the beginning of the end for a multitude of individuals who foolishly believed their secrets would remain buried forever. You are the consequence they never saw coming, the divine follow-up, the spirit they attempted to break, now resurrected and backed by realms they will never comprehend. You didn't merely incarnate to live. You incarnated to testify, and the spiritual courtroom is finally in session, its gavel poised to strike. Number 4. The system wasn't inherently flawed. It was deliberately constructed without you in mind, designed to exclude you from its benefits. The system was never truly broken. It was functioning precisely as it was intended, perfectly calibrated to maintain the status quo. It simply wasn't designed with someone like you in mind, someone who questioned its fundamental premises, someone who challenged its inherent biases. That's the uncomfortable truth they desperately try to suppress. You weren't supposed to question its authority. You weren't supposed to survive its oppressive forces, let alone expose its underlying corruption. But you did. And that's where the fear truly ignited, because your very existence dismantles a carefully constructed narrative they have diligently worked to uphold, that the structure only functions effectively if the truth remains buried, and the spiritually awake are silenced into submission. You were born into systems that thrive on hierarchy, obedience, and enforced silence. Families, schools, workplaces, even religious institutions. Systems that prioritize performance over integrity, loyalty over justice, and silence over the courageous pursuit of truth. You didn't consciously choose to be a rebel, but when your spirit refused to conform to their rigid mold, they labeled you as the problem, not because you were inherently wrong, but because you possessed the rare ability to see directly through their illusions, and what you saw was a reality they couldn't unsee. You didn't arrive at the table politely requesting a seat at their rigged game. You came with the intention of flipping the entire table over, dismantling the entire structure. That's why they initiated the whispers, the smear campaigns, the attempts to isolate you, shame you, silence you, not because you were inherently weak, but because you were awakening others from their slumber, shattering their complacency. You began asking the very questions that were never supposed to be asked, shining a piercing light into the darkest corners where silence had long protected abuse, manipulation, and generational cycles of dysfunction for decades. People become deeply afraid when you expose injustice, when you make the invisible visible, because visibility inherently diminishes control. When you dare to name the very thing that everyone else is pretending not to see, you shatter the illusion they have desperately been hiding behind. Suddenly, titles lose their significance, rituals lose their power, reputations crumble, and that's why they treat you as a threat, because you are not to the innocent but to the entrenched systems that protect the guilty, that perpetuate the cycles of abuse. They were content as long as the script remained unchanged. As long as no one dared to question the underlying structure, but you didn't come to play that subservient role. You arrived with the backing of your ancestors, imbued with impeccable divine timing, possessing eyes that could not be shut, and a voice that would not be silenced. You were never broken. The blueprint was simply never designed to contain someone like you. Someone who sees with unwavering clarity and refuses to pretend otherwise. And now that you have become visible, so too has the truth, its blinding light piercing through the shadows. Number 5. Your vibration poses a threat because it remains impervious to manipulation and unyielding force against their deceptive tactics. Your vibration is a threat because it simply does not respond to manipulation. They have deployed every tactic in their arsenal. Fake smiles, strategic flattery, forced connections, sudden invitations to exclusive circles you were previously excluded from. But none of it works because you do not chase approval. You do not seek external validation as a measure of your worth. You are not moved by superficial flattery. You are not swayed by empty promises. You do not crave inclusion in circles that reek of control, that operate under the guise of acceptance but are truly fueled by manipulation. This singular characteristic makes you inherently dangerous to their world. Because in their carefully constructed reality, power is maintained through influence. And if they cannot influence you, they cannot control you. They are utterly baffled, unable to comprehend how to interact with someone who remains unimpressed by titles or seduced by groupthink, someone who has witnessed the monstrous face of ego lurking behind closed doors. Someone who has experienced the sting of betrayal up close and personal, someone who has already undergone a symbolic death of their old self and no longer responds to their manipulative bait. They cannot fathom why you refuse to fold like so many others have, but the answer is remarkably simple. You have already faced the abyss, stared into the darkness, and you emerged. Transformed, fundamentally changed by the experience. You are not interested in playing their games. You are not interested in climbing ladders built on flattery and fear, on manipulation and control. You do not engage in politics, especially when the price of admission is the forfeiture of your soul. This makes you incorruptible, and in systems that are built on manipulation, coercion and illusion, incorruptibility is not merely rare, it is downright terrifying. People become unsure how to act around someone who cannot be guilt-tripped, peer-pressured, or emotionally blackmailed. They begin to panic when their old tricks fall flat, when their carefully constructed facades begin to crumble. They resort to creating elaborate stories about you, attempting to discredit your character, to paint you in a negative light. They label you as arrogant, cold, unreachable, but the underlying truth is far simpler. You just see through everything now. You are no longer blinded by their carefully constructed illusions. You are not inherently better than them, but you are no longer blind to their deceptive tactics. And that makes you impossible to use, impossible to exploit for their own selfish gains. This is precisely why your vibration unnerves people, why it disrupts their carefully maintained equilibrium. It is pure. It is clean. It is untouchable by the manipulative tactics they have built their entire identities upon. They are not scared of what you might say or do. They are scared that you cannot be bought, that you will not participate in their charades, that you will not bend to power simply because it has a prestigious title or a large following. You are not merely rebellious, you are resolved, steadfast in your commitment to truth. And that unwavering energy cannot be manipulated, it cannot be coerced. So they find themselves in a state of perpetual confusion, unsure whether to fear you, hate you, or reluctantly bow before the undeniable power that emanates from you. Number 6, you represent the last warning before divine retribution arrives, the final opportunity for course correction. You are not simply a person passing through this world. You are the final alarm bell before the impending storm, the harbinger of change. Before karma makes its inevitable move, before divine retribution steps in to rebalance what has been out of order for far too long, God invariably sends a messenger, not always a loud or dramatic figure, but one who possesses the gift of sight, who understands the underlying dynamics, and who offers the final opportunity for change, for redemption. That messenger is you. You didn't come here to beg people to treat you with respect. You didn't come to tiptoe around abuse or to tolerate the silent cycles that systematically destroy people from the inside out. You came to make the invisible visible, to hold space for the unadulterated truth before the inevitable consequences descend. That's why people felt strangely nervous around you, even when you were still finding your own voice, still grappling with your own power. It wasn't necessarily what you were saying. It was what you represented, the potential you carried within you. You represented the end of pretense, the end of escaping accountability, the end of getting away with actions that inflict harm on others. People were given chance after chance to treat you with fairness, to acknowledge their wrongdoings, to initiate meaningful change, but instead many doubled down on their behavior. They mocked your pain, they dismissed your warnings, they ignored your pleas. They manipulated the narrative, twisting the story to their advantage. And in doing so, they ultimately rejected the divine grace that was offered through you. What they failed to realize is that rejecting you wasn't merely rejecting an individual. It was rejecting mercy itself, because when God sends a chosen one to walk into a space of darkness, it's never solely about that one person's journey. It's a test for everyone connected to them, a crucible of transformation. Will they choose to change? Will they embrace growth? Will they acknowledge the truth, however painful it may be? Or will they continue to play their manipulative games, foolishly believing that time is perpetually on their side, that they can indefinitely postpone the inevitable reckoning? You are not the destroyer. You are the witness. Your role is not to inflict punishment, but to make it undeniably clear that warning was given, that love was offered freely, that grace stood before them in human form, and now their response has sealed their fate, setting in motion a chain of events that cannot be undone. This is why your presence resonates so profoundly, why it feels so different from anyone else they have encountered. It's not simply about your personality or your inherent strength. It's about the spiritual significance of your presence, its implications in the unseen realms. You are the prelude to divine correction, the calm before the reckoning, the final whisper of grace before the scales of justice tip irrevocably. They prayed they would never witness the day when consequences arrived, but now they are beginning to realize that that very day dawned when you first walked into their lives, their carefully constructed world. Number 7. Your silence is not an indication of weakness. It's a deliberate adherence to spiritual courtroom protocol, a strategic choice rooted in profound wisdom. Your silence is not what they believe it to be, not what they interpret it to mean. They mistakenly assume you are quiet because you lack anything of substance to say, because you are intellectually or emotionally deficient. They mistakenly assume you are passive because you don't retaliate in the manner they anticipate, because you don't engage in the petty squabbles they so readily indulge in. But they are profoundly wrong. You are not silent because you are afraid, because you lack the courage to speak your truth. You are silent because you possess an acute understanding of timing, a recognition of the delicate dance between the seen and unseen realms. You understand that there is a divine order to all things, a cosmic choreography that unfolds according to its own intricate rhythm. And right now you are choosing silence because the spiritual courtroom is still in the process of gathering evidence, carefully constructing its case. When someone has committed wrongdoings and done so repeatedly, there comes a point when the case against them is meticulously built in the spiritual realm, accumulating with each transgression. Every lie, every act of betrayal, every manipulative scheme, every deliberate setup. It's all being documented not just by you, the injured party, but by something far greater, by a cosmic intelligence that transcends human comprehension. Your silence is not surrender, a tacit admission of defeat. It's cooperation with this divine process, a conscious decision to step out of the way, to allow justice to be served without your interference, without your contamination. This is what most people fail to grasp. They expect you to clap back, to immediately expose every detail on your own chosen timeline, to unleash your fury upon the world. But that is ego driven by fleeting emotions and a desperate need for validation. That's flesh reacting impulsively. You are operating on a far deeper level, guided by something far more profound. You are not driven by volatile emotions. You are led by unwavering discernment, by an intuitive understanding of the underlying currents. You know that when a case is still unfolding, speaking too soon can potentially disrupt the outcome, can inadvertently alert the guilty parties and allow them to cover their tracks more effectively. So you've learned how to wait, not in a state of fear or apprehension, but in unwavering faith, trusting in the divine plan. You've learned how to wait not in a position of weakness, but in sacred discipline, honoring the process unfolding. You're allowing them to talk, to weave their elaborate narratives. You're allowing them to twist the story to manipulate the perception of others. You're allowing them to laugh, to gossip, to deny, to play the role of the innocent victim. Why? Because you know the day is inevitably coming when all the facts will become undeniable, when the truth will emerge with irrefutable clarity, not through dramatic displays, not through vengeful acts, but through the unfolding of divine order. And when that day arrives, no one will question why you remained silent. They'll finally realize that you weren't silent out of fear or weakness. You were patient, trusting in a higher power. You weren't avoiding confrontation. You were meticulously obeying spiritual law, honoring the unseen forces at play. The truth is, you could have dragged them through the mud a long time ago. You could have exposed their lies, revealed their carefully constructed masks, laid out the irrefutable receipts for the world to see, but you deliberately chose not to. Because the real courtroom isn't on social media, it's not in superficial conversations. It's in the unseen realm, in the realm of spirit, and in that sacred space, the judge never misses a detail. Never overlooks a single nuance. You move when the verdict is sealed, when the divine is spoken, not when your own feelings are hurt, not when your ego demands immediate gratification. And that's what ultimately separates you from those who are scrambling to maintain control, desperately clinging to their fading illusions. You don't need to prove yourself to anyone. The divine will do it for you in its own perfect timing with unparalleled force. Number 8, you were deliberately sent to places where justice had been abandoned, where darkness reigned, to restore balance and ignite the flames of truth. You were not randomly placed in situations of chaos, thrust into environments of dysfunction by mere accident. You were deliberately sent there, to that specific family, to that particular environment, to that unique community. It was not a coincidence, a random roll of the dice. You were assigned, handpicked by the divine, to walk into the precise locations where justice had been abandoned for generations, where silence had become ingrained tradition, where wrong was casually labeled as right, where the truth had been buried so deeply that people had forgotten what it even looked like. You were born into it not to conform to its warped standards, not to perpetuate its cycles of abuse, but to actively confront it, to challenge its very foundations. From the very beginning, even as a young child, you noticed the subtle discrepancies that others pretended not to see, the blatant favoritism, the manipulative tactics, the outright abuse, the unspoken secrets that everyone whispered about in hushed tones but never openly addressed. And you were repeatedly told to stay quiet, to keep the peace, to avoid rocking the boat. But something deep within your spirit simply could not comply, because you were not born to protect dysfunction, to shield the perpetrators of harm. You were born to end it, to dismantle the very structures that perpetuate injustice. You carry within you a wellspring of spiritual intelligence that didn't originate from books or formal education. It arose from lifetimes of experience, from ancestral memories resonating within your DNA, from a soul that has observed the tragic consequences of injustice playing out over and over again. And this time, the divine has sent you in with unwavering clarity and unyielding fire, not to scream and destroy, not to lash out in anger, but to realign the corrupted energies, to restore balance where it has long been absent. You were sent to bring the unadulterated truth to those places where lies had constructed entire legacies built upon deceit and manipulation. That is precisely why they treated you as if you were the problem, the disruptive element, the catalyst for chaos. That is precisely why you felt like the outcast, the black sheep, the one who simply didn't fit in. You were too different, too honest, too awake, too unwilling to compromise your values. In spaces where everyone else had silently agreed to look the other way, to participate in the collective denial, your mere presence alone served as a form of confrontation, a silent indictment of their complicity. They could not comprehend why you refused to follow their unspoken rules of silence, but you were not made for their rules. You came to rewrite them, to create a new paradigm. Even your own suffering, the pain you endured in those toxic environments, served a higher purpose. The pain you endured in those environments gave you eyes to see it all for what it truly was, to pierce through the carefully constructed facades and recognize the underlying dysfunction. You did not merely survive. You bore witness, you documented the patterns of abuse, you cataloged the effects of trauma. And now that you have risen above those challenges, your very existence is a potent challenge to the systems that once sought to erase you, to diminish your light. You were not sent to fit in, to assimilate into their warped reality. You were sent to reveal, to expose, to break the cycles of abuse, to bring balance to places where manipulation once reigned supreme. That is why your life has always felt different, why you have always sensed a profound purpose guiding your steps, because it is different, because you are different. You are the sacred disruptor, and your assignment was never about personal comfort or ease. It was about correction, about restoring divine order to a world desperately in need of healing. Number 9. Individuals who abused their power in secret, cloaked in shadows, are now facing exposure through your unwavering presence, and they can feel the tremors of their impending downfall. The ones who abused their power in silence, those who operated under the cover of darkness, are now being relentlessly exposed through your mere existence, and deep within their souls, they can sense the inevitable consequences of their actions drawing near. They mistakenly believed they could forever move undetected in the dark, that they could perpetually operate without accountability. They built their entire identities on secrecy, control, and manipulative tactics, carefully constructing facades to conceal their true nature. For years, they were shielded by silence, by their carefully cultivated reputations, and by the fear they instilled in others. But that protective shield is now crumbling, beginning to disintegrate under the weight of truth. And it's happening not because you are actively trying to destroy them or tear down their carefully constructed empires, but because the unadulterated truth that resides within you, the unwavering light of your spirit, refuses to remain silent any longer. It demands to be heard. It demands to be acknowledged. You do not merely see with your physical eyes. You possess the extraordinary gift of discernment, the ability to penetrate beneath the surface and perceive the underlying realities. You notice patterns that others routinely overlook, the subtle cues that betray the presence of deception. You pick up on the unspoken messages, the hidden agendas that people are meticulously trained to ignore. You hear what is not being said. The veiled threats masked as compliments, the subtle manipulations woven into seemingly innocent conversations, and you feel what others pretend isn't there. The undercurrent of unease, the lingering scent of fear, the pervasive weight of suppressed emotions. That is what makes you so profoundly dangerous to those who operate in the shadows, who thrive on deceit and manipulation, because the unadulterated truth flows to you effortlessly, drawn to you like a moth to a flame. You don't have to dig for it, you don't have to exert conscious effort to uncover hidden secrets. It simply reveals itself in your presence, drawn by the magnetic force of your authenticity. What they never prepared for, what they never anticipated, was encountering someone like you. Someone who couldn't be manipulated, someone who wouldn't play their games. Someone who has absolutely no interest in preserving false images or maintaining carefully constructed facades. They foolishly believed that if they smiled brightly in public, performed acts of humility in front of the right people, and meticulously cultivated a positive image, no one would ever discover the devastating damage they caused behind closed doors, the pain they inflicted in the shadows. But you were divinely sent to know, to witness the truth that they desperately sought to conceal. You didn't need to catch them in the act. You didn't need to gather irrefutable proof of their wrongdoing. You carried within you spiritual receipts, indelible records of their transgressions etched into the fabric of your soul. Their energy betrayed them, the subtle vibrations of guilt and deceit radiating outward. Their carefully constructed masks slipped in your presence, revealing the true face beneath the facade, because your vibration is fundamentally incompatible with lies. It repels falsehood like oil and water. You don't have to engage in arguments or hurl accusations. Your very presence alone pulls the truth to the surface, forcing it into the light. That's why they instinctively avoid you, why they shrink away from your gaze, why their voice falters and their composure unravels when you are near, why their hands tremble when they attempt to speak in your presence. Their soul recognizes that it is being seen, that its secrets are no longer safe. And the exposure you bring is not a theatrical display, not a performance designed to garner attention or seek revenge. It's a divine unveiling, a quiet but irreversible revelation, because once the truth has been seen, once the illusion has been shattered, it cannot be unseen, it cannot be easily dismissed or ignored. You are not outing them for the sake of personal vengeance, driven by bitterness or resentment. You are revealing them because justice in its purest form requires visibility. It demands that the darkness be brought into the light. Their secrets were never destined to survive forever. The seeds of their destruction were sown long ago, and your arrival simply marked the beginning of the end, the inevitable unraveling of their carefully constructed lies. You are not just a passive witness to their downfall. You are the very evidence itself, the living embodiment of their karmic consequences, and now the lights are on, illuminating their actions for all to see. And they are standing exposed, their secrets laid bare. Number 10. You are a walking archive, a living repository of spiritual surveillance, bearing witness to the hidden truths of the world. You are not simply someone who has endured hardship, who has weathered the storms of life and emerged scarred but resilient. You are the living record of what happened, the walking, talking testament to the hidden realities of the past. Every lie they told, every act of betrayal they attempted to bury, every time they pretended that nothing happened, that the truth was merely a figment of your imagination. It all resides within your spirit, safely preserved like a sealed file, waiting for the opportune moment to be revealed. You didn't forget, you didn't exaggerate, you didn't misinterpret the events. You witnessed it all firsthand, and your soul meticulously documented every moment, not for the purpose of revenge or retribution, but for the day when the truth would finally speak without shouting, when justice would finally prevail without the need for violence or aggression. They mistakenly believed that the passage of time would erase their transgressions, that if they avoided accountability for long enough, the story would simply fade away, becoming a distant and insignificant memory. But it didn't. It lives within you, not as a source of perpetual pain or bitterness, but as invaluable evidence, as a beacon of truth that cannot be extinguished. They are not merely scared of your voice, of your ability to articulate your experiences. They are profoundly scared of your memory, of your unwavering capacity to recall the past with unwavering clarity, because you remember clearly, you remember precisely what happened. And more than that, you remember spiritually perceiving the underlying intentions, the hidden agendas, the unspoken motivations that drove their actions. You saw beyond the superficiality of their words. You perceived the true intent behind their smiles. You caught the subtle threat masked as a compliment, the underlying guilt concealed by their forced silence. What they failed to realize, what they fundamentally underestimated, is that spiritually attuned individuals don't simply move on from traumatic experiences. They record them. They meticulously archive the details, knowing that truth has a way of resurfacing in its own divine timing. Your spirit is a sacred archive, a living testament to the events that transpired, not because you hold grudges or harbor resentment, but because heaven itself holds the truth, meticulously safeguarding it for the moment of reckoning. And now, as the timing aligns, as the veils begin to lift, your story is being heard not just by other people, not just by those who can offer empathy and support, but by powers far greater than them, by cosmic forces that are now aligning to bring about justice. You're not testifying out of bitterness. You're not seeking sympathy or validation. You are simply bearing witness to the truth, allowing your story to be heard in its entirety, trusting that the divine will handle the rest. So to wrap it all up, beautiful souls, remember this. You are not here by accident. You are powerful, divinely appointed agents of truth and justice. And the unease you might stir in others is often just a reflection of their own shadows being brought to light. Embrace your purpose, trust your intuition, and know that even in silence, your presence speaks volumes. I'd love to hear your thoughts and experiences. Has this resonated with you? What are your own insights? Please leave a comment below. Let's start a conversation. And if you found this helpful or inspiring, please subscribe so you don't miss out on future explorations of spiritual awakening and divine purpose. We're in this together, 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 in this together.